Everybody can hear me? Good. Not very well. Okay, I will speak up then. Is that better? Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the 2024 Bell Lecture. My name is Brenda O'Neill, and I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Public Affairs at Carleton University. The first thing I'd like to do is acknowledge that the Carleton Dominion Chalmers Centre is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. As we well know, we hear these land acknowledgements much more often these days, and they are intended to acknowledge as well as honor the original people of these lands and the treaty agreements and the unceded lands that we now occupy. I think it's important that we take a moment not only to acknowledge them, but to do so with intent. We need to prioritize our commitment to challenge and dismantle colonial mindsets that we have internalized both collectively and individually. They can sometimes be just words, but it's important that we combine action with words. And I'm pleased to say that in the Faculty of Political Science, our most recently passed strategic plan includes a number of commitments to indigenization and decolonization. So tonight we're here for the Dick, Ruth, and Judy Bell Lecture, which is a highlight of the academic year for the Faculty of Public Affairs. It was established by Ruth Bell, a Carleton political science alumna, who was an educator and a champion for women's and children's rights. And the lecture honors the contributions of individuals to the political and public life of Canada. It also gives our students an opportunity to hear from and ask questions of Canadian public leaders. And I'm so pleased to see so many people here tonight, including students, in this wonderful building that deserves to have a big audience in it. There's so many students here tonight, and that's important because one of the planks of the Faculty of Public Affairs' mission is to contribute to informed citizenship in our country and our society. And that's a laudable goal. Now let me introduce Professor Evelyn Mader, who is the Interim Associate Dean and Director of Arthur Kruger College, and she will introduce tonight's speaker.
All right, thank you, Brenda, and thanks to everyone joining us tonight in person and on the live stream. A quick note that we will have a Q&A session after the lecture. If you would like to submit a question, please scan the QR code that you can see on the screen, which you cannot at the moment. When it appears, you may scan it and submit questions this way. We will try to get to as many of these questions as we can. Please know that you can also submit questions throughout the presentation. As Brenda mentioned, I am the Interim Associate Dean and Director of the Arthur Kruger College of Public Affairs. I wanted to thank Mary Francoli, who is currently on sabbatical, for inviting Jagmeet Singh to be the keynote speaker at this year's Bell Lecture. Now, I am truly honored to introduce Jagmeet Singh, leader of Canada's New Democratic Party. Mr. Singh graduated from Osgoode Law School in 2005 and became a criminal defense lawyer. He began his political career in 2011 at the age of 32 when he was elected as a member of provincial parliament in Ontario. In 2015, he was named Deputy Leader of the Ontario NDP under Andrea Horwath. In 2017, he was elected leader of the federal New Democratic Party. 1 year later, he relocated to Burnaby, BC, and won the parliamentary seat for Burnaby South. Mr. Singh is the first racialized person to lead a major Canadian federal political party on a permanent basis. It is my pleasure to welcome Jagmeet Singh to the 2024 Bell Lecture.
Wow. Thank you for the warm welcome. Check. How's the audio? Can you hear me all right? Yes, there it goes. I can hear it now too. Okay, great. Okay, we got this picture going. So I'm going to talk about this picture in a second. How y'all feeling tonight?
Yeah? Okay. I got to do some thank yous. Okay, it's getting louder now. Wow. Good thing I took some time before I got into it. I got to do some thank yous. First of all, I'm very honored with this opportunity. So thank you to all the organizers who put this event together. Thank you to Carleton University and the incredible staff. I got to have dinner with some of the great leaders of the institution, and thank you for that opportunity. And thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak to you all. And let's give a round of applause to all the organizers who put tonight together. So I'll have a bit of an interactive speech with you today. There'll be some slides I'll draw your attention to. And so the first slide is going to help set up why I care. And I invite you all, a little bit of homework for you all, after the speech, after the lecture, I guess, to go home and think about your own personal why. Like, why is it you are doing what you do, or why is it you pursue the goals that you're trying to pursue? The why is actually very powerful. So I want to share that with you, why I care and what motivates me. Well, it's my mom is why I care, a lot of the reason why. And so there's some slides of me and my mom. The first one, just to let you know what you're seeing there, the first one is it coming through this? Check, no, it's not. The first one is we're in Newfoundland and Labrador. Interesting fact, I grew up in Newfoundland and Labrador. Shout outs to anyone, yeah? Folks from Newfoundland and Labrador, yeah. Beautiful. It's my kid brother is on the bottom there with the cute chubby cheeks. I'm hugging my mom, and that's my mom. Obviously. The middle one's also from the same era-ish, a little bit later, but St. John's, Newfoundland, Labrador. And then this last picture is my mom and dad came to visit me when I was, it's because I look this way. I see what's going on here. There you go. I got to do that. Okay, I'll do one of these. My mom and dad came to visit me when I was campaigning across the country for my first, I think it was the first national election campaign, and she came to visit me at the plane, and then I was giving her a cute little hug, and then someone caught the picture, so that's that. And what my mom taught me is what I want to share with you. She taught me this belief that is my foundational belief. If there's one belief that really describes my why, the reason why I care, the reason why I'm motivated, is this belief that my mom taught me that we're all one. And you might be wondering what does that mean? As a kid, it was hard for me to understand as well. It's like, sounds a bit, if you're trying to take it in right now, probably sounds a bit new age, maybe a little hippie. Like, what is this? We're all one. Well, the way my mom tried to explain it to me is when we would serve people food, or we would engage in something that's called in the Sikh tradition seva, or selfless service, she would ask me to imagine that I'm not serving a stranger. She said, imagine you were serving me. Imagine you're serving your sister or your brother, someone that you love. In fact, imagine that you're helping yourself out. And so this other thing we would do whenever we go for meditation at a Sikh place of meditation called the Gurdwara, you leave your shoes in the shoe rack, and after the meditation you come down and your shoes would be cleaned. To which my friends would often say, can we just leave our shoes there as well? Which I'm not sure that's exactly how it works, but sure. But you would leave your shoes there, someone would end up polishing them or rubbing them clean. They'd be better than you left them. And so I would do that as well. And when I would do that, my mom would again remind me, imagine you're doing this not for a stranger, but imagine that is someone that you're deeply connected to. Imagine that's literally you. And then as I grew older, I tried to understand what this meant, this idea to imagine that we are not just connected to the people around us, but they are us. So if people around us are hurting, we're also hurting. But if we help the people around us, we're also taking care of ourselves. And if you think about it as the golden rule, the do unto others as you wish done unto you, but on steroids. Because you really believe that you are that person. And kind of imagine the type of world we would live in if we truly believed that. Like, how would we take better care of each other if we believed that? It's kind of like the premier for Manitoba, big shout out to Wab Canoe, has this saying that he leans into, which is a tradition from the indigenous peoples, the idea that all my relations, because we're all related. So it's very much this idea. And so it's easy to believe this when we're in a lovely room like this and you're being so kind and paying so much attention to what I'm saying. It's easy for me to see that we're all one. The challenge sometimes is to feel that you're one with someone who is angry at you, who is really frustrated, who is expressing a lot of anger maybe towards you. And so I'm going to show you a clip that is me trying to connect with this sense of oneness in a moment that was more difficult. So I'll play the clip for you. If I can do this right. No? Maybe? Oh boy. There it is.
Do we believe in celebrating diversity? Give it a round of applause for site diversity. A round of applause for diversity. All right. So, here. It's so. That's it. It's okay. So, what this is, we don't want to be intimidated by hate. We don't want hatred to ruin a positive event, right? We don't want hatred to ruin a positive event. So let's show people how we would treat someone with love. We welcome you. We welcome you. We welcome you. We love you. We support you and we love you. We support you, we love you. We all here, everyone in this room loves you. We all support you. We believe in your rights. We all believe in your rights. This room is a room filled of people that are loving and that will support you, but this isn't the best way to do it, but it's okay.
Probably not the best way to do it, true. That was a clip. I don't know if folks saw it. Show of hands if you've seen this clip before. It went viral at one point. At one point, it was trending around the world. Folks in Australia, who are my friends, sent it to me saying, "Do you know about this clip?" I'm like, "Yes, I was there actually, so I do know about the clip actually." But they're like, "It's in Australia." I'm like, "Wow, that's wild." I think what it was. This is actually before things got more tense. This is some years ago, 2017, and what I was trying to do, just to give you some context. So I was in my leadership campaign, and lots of folks are really excited about it. And I hadn't done an event back in the riding where I had launched my career, where I had so many people that knew of me and supported me and had got me to that point. So this is the first time when we were doing an event back in the riding, where I was representing provincially. And so there's lots of people in the room, and they were really excited. And I was worried that the people that were so excited, that would turn into something really negative. If they saw her or saw the person attacking me or being aggressive, that people might get angry at the person. And I didn't want that to happen. So I wanted to stop that in its tracks. And I wanted the people in the room not to take this as a moment to maybe stand up for me and try to step in for me. But I wanted people to know that it's okay. There's going to be people that disagree with us. But we want to give people that positive energy, that love, and try to find a way to connect. Because I could tell that there was an anger and there was a frustration. And I don't think it was really directed at me. I think there was something else going on in the person's life. And maybe I was the outlet for it, but I really wanted to find that moment to connect. But it's a bit of sense of me trying to follow what my mom taught me, this idea that we're all one. And it's that belief that drives me to this day. And it's why I care so deeply about inequality and injustice. It's why I want to build a more fair Canada. It's why I take really personally things like the corporate greed that's driving up the cost of groceries, why it matters so much to me, why I'm so angry at it. Because I know what it's like as well. I've lived a bit of that struggle. The earlier slide you saw a picture of me and my brother. My kid brother had to come live with me when I was 20. Folks in this room, I see a lot of younger folks that are 20. Show of hands if you're in the 20 age group-ish range. 20, yeah? 20-year-olds, okay, ish, 21, 22, good enough. In that range. So I was 20, I was in third year university. Does that add up? Third year, right, if you're 20? So double check, fact checking my own story as I'm telling you it. Unlike some other politicians. So I was 20 in my third year of university, and things were not really good at home. We were going through a rough spot. My dad was struggling with an illness for a lot of my childhood. I saw him struggle with this. And so he was dealing with an addiction, and times were really tough at home. And I was away from school, away from home. My sister was also moving out from home that year. And so my brother would have been left alone. He's 15, and I felt worried. So I had a tough chat with my mom, and as the eldest, and now as a parent, I can get how tough this chat was. I had to tell her that her baby boy, that her youngest, wasn't safe at home. And she said, you're right, it's probably a better idea for him not to be at home. So he came to live with me. And so when I was 20, I was taking care of my kid brother. Anyone have to take care of a teenager in your life? Tough, sometimes it can be tough. Especially they're very hungry, I noticed, when I was always hungry, it seemed like. So I had... this is a part comedy act, it seems like almost. I had a 15-year-old, and then I got a call from my mom. that my dad got even more sick, and not only were things unstable at home, but he wasn't able to work, and then she couldn't send any money to support me. And as the eldest, I told her, don't worry, I'm cool, I got this, everything's okay. Got off the phone, I panicked, went out and got like 3 jobs as a 20-year-old, minimum wage jobs, folks can relate. And I was working hard to put food on the table, and I always felt like I was drowning though. It always felt like I was barely able to make the bills. I was always like I felt like I couldn't stay on top of things. And I had this constant nagging fear and worry, kind of like this in the pit of my stomach, that my kid brother might go hungry. So it was a tough time. And I remember in that time how hard it was. And it's a part of why I don't want anyone to feel that same worry and anxiety. I don't want anyone to feel that way. And it's why I care so much and why I want to fight so much to make life more affordable for people, because I remember what that's like. But I also got to tell you that in that tough time, I was really lucky to have the generosity of strangers that treated me like their son. And one example of that is my brother going to school, high school, his friends, I guess he told them that he's living with his brother. Some of those friends, their parents kind of put 2 and 2 together, thought 2 younger boys living together, they're probably hungry. So they would send food home. And one of his friends' parents would send pierogies. And when she sent pierogies, I meant she would like send buckets of pierogies. Like she really thought we were hungry. And it would fill our freezer. Like we would have like a freezer filled with frozen pierogies, homemade, delicious pierogies. I still love pierogies. Anyone wants to give me pierogies, I'm open to it. But sometimes my brother would then ask me, so what's for dinner tonight? And then when we had that delivery of pierogies, I'd look at him and say, brother, you know what's for dinner. We're eating pierogies. I got real creative with making pierogies, but the reason why I share this story is that I did not get to thank that mom. In the moment, I just was so thankful, but I didn't actually say thank you to her. So to this day, there's a mom out there who gave me my brother pierogies that I didn't get to thank. But it's the generosity of strangers that got me in a lot of ways through those difficult times. And I'm so thankful for that. And it really is this idea that we're all connected. I really believe that. I lived it, I experienced it, and it's a part of what drives me to this day. And so that's a bit of why I care, what motivates me, what drives me, the reason that I believe we're all one, we're all connected deeply. And so I mentioned corporate greed. I want to address this question that I feel is on our minds a lot. Why is everything so expensive? Folks felt this question in your mind? Show of hands. Something that's on your mind. Why is everything so expensive? I feel you, right? Things are really expensive. And I want to talk a bit about why they're so expensive. So every time we go, and I feel like people know this, but anytime you go and you go to a grocery store and you pay for something and it's so expensive, anytime you pay your internet bill or your cell phone bill, you're like, this is so expensive. Anytime you're struggling with your rent and you're like, it's so hard to find a place that's affordable, behind each one of those bills, each one of those things that we pay regularly, is a CEO and a rich corporation that's making lots of money. And so I put it to you in each of those areas, groceries, cell phone and internet fees, housing, in each of those areas, it is corporate greed that is driving up the cost of living. It is rich CEOs that are exploiting and ripping off Canadians as one of the major reasons why life is so unaffordable. And I believe fundamentally, and so I'm going to make the case for this, so if you don't believe me yet, I'm going to make the case, that it is the job of government to stand up for people to stop these powerful corporations from ripping you off. That's what I believe fundamentally is our job. It's my job. It's to stop these folks that have so much power over our lives, to stop them from ripping us off. So let me make the case now. Grocery. I feel like it's not hard to make in groceries, but I'm going to make the case. I'm sure you've gone into the grocery store these past couple of years and noticed that the price of things just continues to skyrocket. You go in 1 week, you're going back a couple weeks later, the same thing you bought, it's more expensive. And over 2 years, it's climbed up to a point where you're like, this is very difficult. I've heard from people who used to love going to the grocery store because there's a chance to maybe buy some ingredients for a recipe to cook at home. Going to the grocery was like a cheaper alternative than to going out. You'd go save some money and buy groceries instead. And now people dread going to the grocery store because you don't know how much you're going to be able to afford this week. And you for sure are not going to be able to get the special treats that you need for your family. And if you felt that way, has anyone felt that way before? Show of hands, yeah, a couple people. You're not alone, because the cost of groceries, grocery inflation, has outpaced general inflation for 25 months, basically over 2 years. And so it is the case that food prices have gone up really rapidly. At the same time, those grocery store companies, those large corporate grocery stores, have made record profits. Not just good profits, not high profits, but record profits. Their CEOs are making record bonuses. Some examples of that, just to give you the sheer number. In 2023, the grocery sector made record profits to the tune of $6 billion. Loblaws at one point was making $1 million in excess profits a day. And when we say excess profits, we're saying these are profits well and beyond their regular good profits. These are better than great profits. These are excess profits they're making. We know that workers at those very same grocery stores, and we know there's a couple of major chains, but we got Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, Walmart, and Costco. Basically, those are the ones that people go to. If you go to any other store, it's probably some subsidiary or some company owned by one of those three. We know that workers at those very same grocery stores are going on strike because they're not earning enough to shop at the grocery stores they work at. And we've got conclusive evidence. The Competition Bureau has investigated and found conclusively that they have indeed increased their profit margins during this time period. So these corporate grocery stores have increased their profit margins. They're making record profits. So some folks might be saying, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, but is it really that big of a deal? Are they really doing something that's that inappropriate? I'm not sure. Well, let me give you an example. It wasn't that long ago that we actually found that large corporate grocery stores and big bread producers did indeed do something very wrong. Folks might recall in 2018, these large corporate bread manufacturers and corporate grocery stores colluded to jack up the price of bread and ripped off Canadians. Maybe folks don't know how much that scandal was worth, though. There was some investigation into the sheer number of how much it was worth. Raw guess, what do you think these collectively they were able to make? How much money do you think they made? Just throw out a number. How much? $2 billion? That's a big number. That's huge. That's a lot of money. Higher. Even more. That's a little too high. A little too high. But $5 billion. Reports indicate that collusion between bread producers and corporate grocery stores was a $5 billion scandal. They ripped off Canadians to the tune of $5 billion. And then you think, okay, well, they got found guilty of doing this. They might have got a punishment for doing so. They did. And one of the major, I'll give you an example of that punishment. One of the major players in this scandal was the Canada Bread Company. What do you think their fine was? Collectively, there's just one, of course, not the entire beneficiary, but one of them. They collectively made $5 billion. What do you think the penalty was for one of the major players, so Canada Bread Company? Any guess? 500,000 is very low. It was a little bit higher than that. Anyone else? I guess. How much? 5 million. Getting closer. 50 million. They got fined 50 million, but collectively, these companies made 5 billion. I put to you that 50 million is barely a rounding error. That's not even a slap on the wrist. I can't even think of an analogy to describe it less than that, but it is nothing. It doesn't even scratch the surface. So I hope I've made the case to you that there's countless examples of how corporate grocery stores are ripping off Canadians. We also know of some of their practices they're engaged in, anti-competitive practices. So one example of that is, in Halifax, the CBC uncovered this, that Sobeys, if it's operating in the same plaza as a Dollarama, doesn't allow a competitor to sell bread in their store, which is clearly anti-competitive behavior. It should be illegal, but they're allowed to get away with that. And there's, again, more and more examples of how they're abusing their dominant market share. So we know that people get that this is wrong. And we then decided we're going to summon the CEOs of these large corporate grocery stores to Ottawa to really hold them to account, something that they probably never have had to do before. And so we asked Canadians to send us their questions. Say, what would you ask a CEO of a large corporate grocery store if we had a chance to ask them a question? Well, we were inundated with answers. Oh, I lost my clicker here. If someone's out there, they can just move to the next slide for me, maybe? Yeah, one more? Yeah, great. I actually literally do not know where I put that clicker, so hopefully you find it. It's up here somewhere. We asked people, and I said, like, we got thousands of responses, and I want to give you a couple of excerpts. I think that's too little, unless you've got really good eyesight. I'm not sure you can read those, but I'll read a couple to you. One of the excerpts we got, one of the questions we got from people, I actually showed up to that committee hearing with like a stack of those questions, and I like thunked it down on the desk because I wanted to show like we had a lot of people that were concerned. Some of the questions we got from people, I said, what would you want me to ask the CEOs? One was, ask the CEOs, plural, ask the CEOs what tips they have to be able to sleep at night knowing full well there are little ones, children, teens, seniors, and others going hungry. How does it feel to hoard such wealth while so many suffer? The second example, one of the things we got was, can you ask the CEO of Loblaws, a popular target in this matter, can you ask the CEO of Loblaws why he's hurting the working class? My grocery bill is insane, and I haven't been able to keep up with the rising costs since the summer of 2021. Thanks for fighting for us. I just want to show you these, people get it. People go into the grocery store, they know that someone's making profits off them when they're getting ripped off so badly. And I want to just give you an example that these are real people that are the victims of this corporate greed. We know in Canada right now, there are reports indicate 1 out of 5 Canadian is skipping a meal because of how expensive groceries are. Food bank usage is at a record high, the highest level since 1989. So in light of all that, I put to you that this isn't going to get better on its own. Large corporations aren't going to just stop ripping people off on their own. This is where government has a responsibility, and we can absolutely take on this corporate greed. We can bring in laws, not voluntary codes of conduct, because that's not going to do anything. We need laws, we need legislation that protect consumers, that stand up to this corporate greed and ensure that we bring down the price of food and keep families safe and protected, make sure young people and seniors can afford the food that they need. We can do this, and we have to do it. I fundamentally believe that is my job, and is a work of government, to stand up for people against the powerful, to make sure people can live a good life. So some of what we're doing is we're calling these folks to committees, we're calling them out, we're directly pointing out the corporate greed. We're also putting in place different solutions to take on corporate greed concretely. One of them is I've presented legislation, and that legislation would crack down on corporate greed in specific ways. I mentioned the penalty, the $50 million fine. In the legislation that I proposed, that actually has gotten past one stage in Parliament, so somewhat encouraging. I highly doubt, though, the Liberals and Conservatives will support it going forward, but we'll see. But this legislation proposes that in the case of that bread price fixing scandal, that one of the options in terms of a sentence should be triple the benefit accrued. So if they made $5 billion off of ripping off Canadians, then one of the penalty options should be a collective $15 billion fine. Now we're talking deterrence. That's teeth that would make sure that no company would dare exploit people in that way, lest they suffer a significant and crushing type of penalty. That's what we need to do. And we actually learned some of these things from other jurisdictions where they have much stronger laws to protect consumers. We borrowed some of these ideas from other jurisdictions. In addition, we are currently calling for an investigation into price fixing. If price fixing happened with bread, we want to investigate to see, is price fixing happening right now on a broader scale with all of groceries? We also know we need to bring in more competition. And for me and for New Democrats, competition means supporting local and independent grocery stores so that people have real choices, real options, and we can take on this corporate greed in a meaningful way. The other area I want to put to you where we are seeing a massive increase in cost of living is in our rent and housing. And I want to put to you in rent and housing, I'm sure you felt that. You see the cost of rent going up, You see the cost of housing going up. I put to you some evidence around this. I'm sure you've seen this, but rent is going up 4 times faster than wages. Since Justin Trudeau was elected, rents have doubled, and wages have only gone up by 26%. And I want to put to you, why is that happening? I see very clearly, and I think there's more and more evidence mounting, that in the case of housing, we're seeing the exact same thing, corporate greed. We're seeing corporate landlords and speculators driving up the cost of housing and scooping up affordable housing. I'm sure you've heard stories of friends that live in an apartment building, and that apartment building, they end up getting evicted, and then that building gets renovated. We call them renovictions or demevictions. They renovate the building, or they demolish it and build a new one there, and then it's a luxury apartment, and the rent is like double or triple or quadruple what it was before. We're seeing that again and again across the country, in cities everywhere. We're seeing this happen. And an example of what people are up against, 2 years ago, Core Development Group, Canadian corporation, announced it intended to scoop up $1 billion in single-family homes in Canada. $1 billion. To convert these single-family homes into rentals, and they have a plan to add another 10,000 homes to their portfolio in the next 5 years. How is a young person who graduates with a good job supposed to compete with a company that's planning to buy $1 billion worth of housing? We know more and more when we see the rent increases that it's fewer and fewer companies that own more and more rental units that are the ones applying for the biggest increases in rent. We're seeing corporate landlords buying affordable homes at a record pace. We're seeing speculators look at our housing market as a stock market. A great place to make an investment and to make lots of money, a bad place if you're a young person, if you're a senior on a fixed income, if you're a young family, basically if you're anyone else. So the housing market, I put to you, is not broken. It's working exactly the way it was intended. It's intended to make rich folks richer. It's intended to make rich investors richer, but it's not working for everyone else. And that has to change. And so the solution, and I want to put to you that there are solutions. For each of these things, I want to give you hope. There are solutions. We can make better choices to get better outcomes. But what you're going to hear from a lot of folks is that we need to build. We need to build more supply. There's not enough supply. I agree there's not enough supply. That's true. And to build that supply, the private sector is going to be a part of it. But we can't expect that the private sector is going to solve all the problems. If we know that the housing market's been designed to make rich investors richer, we can't expect the private sector is going to come in and somehow make affordable homes. They can build more homes, and we need to build more homes in general, but we need to look at all the solutions. We also need to purposely build homes that are actually affordable. And this is something that the federal government hasn't been doing for the past number of decades. The federal government has played really no role in building affordable homes. But we used to. If you look back after the World Wars, a lot of the first homes that people purchased, the affordable homes, some call them victory homes in some communities, sometimes they're called the wartime homes. The affordable homes that were in many communities, hundreds and thousands of these were built by the federal government. They were truly affordable. Veterans were able to buy them and start their lives. And some of them remain actually the affordable homes that exist in many communities. That's what we need to do. We need to use federal land, money, and power to purposely build affordable homes, cooperative homes, where everyone who lives in that building, every tenant is actually an owner. Not-for-profit housing, where the housing is owned by a community organization whose only goal is to keep the rent affordable. We need to look at every option to build homes that are truly affordable. We're not going to get out of this thing with what I've heard from liberals and conservatives, that just build more homes. But build more what? If you build more luxury condos, that's not going to fix the problem. If you build more luxury homes that no one can afford except rich investors, again, that's not going to solve the problem. So we need to look at all solutions. And I put to you, we can do this. I visited countries where they have affordable homes and affordable rents. It can be done. But it's a matter of making it a priority, and it's a matter of making the right choices. And those choices have to be dictated by what's in the best interest of everyday people. Not what's in the best interest of rich investors, but what's in the best interest of everyone in this room today. And my final piece of evidence I want to put to you for why corporate greed is driving up the cost of living are cell phone bills and internet bills. I gotta tell you, to this day, my most annoying bill that I get is my cell phone bill. It is so annoying. There's always some way that whatever provider I have, and I try to switch them, sometimes the better deal with one or the other. I do all those things, but no matter what, it always feels like there's always hitting me with some extra charge. Like I feel like I've chosen the unlimited plan, the unlimited billing, or that's what it feels like, unlimited billing. I've chosen the unlimited data and the unlimited phone calls, and somehow I keep on getting hit with these fees. I'm like, well, show me the option where I don't get additional fees. I don't want any more fees racked up on my bill. Just a show of hands if you find your cell phone bills annoying. Like they annoy you so much. They annoy me so much, I gotta tell you. If you've been annoyed by your cell phone bill, again, you're not alone, because it turns out, I don't know if you know this, but Canada has some of the highest cell phone and internet fees in the world. Literally the world. I think we're the top 3. I'm gonna fact check myself real quick here. Top 3 countries paying the highest telecom prices in the world, along with Japan, US, Canada. These are the top 3 expensive. And US is way cheaper than us. So take into consideration how expensive it is here. We are getting ripped off when it comes to our cell phone bills. And you'll hear the cell phone companies say, oh, but Canada's a really big country, it's cold, populations are sparsely intermixed. So is Finland, Sweden, and Norway. They're way cheaper than us. If anyone's been out there, way cheaper. We are getting ripped off. And there's some evidence that it's corporate greed. One of the pieces of evidence, Canada's top 3 carriers, I'm sure folks know, Bell, TELUS, and Rogers, their combined profit margin is 46%, which is well above the developed nations' world average, which is also pretty high, of 33%. So they are very much ripping us off. In case you needed more evidence, the CEO of Rogers makes his salary 381 times the average salary of an employee at his company. We're seeing that. I don't know if some of the folks that are a little bit more seasoned might recall a time when there were more variety. There's other companies out there. I remember one of my first cell phone companies was a ClearNet. Anyone remember ClearNet back in the day? Yeah. What we're seeing is mergers have concentrated more and more wealth, power, and a dominant market share in the hands of less and less companies. So there's really only 3 left in our country, and we are hurting because of that. So a couple things. We got to stop these mergers where they are concentrating more and more wealth in fewer and fewer hands. Part of the bill that I mentioned earlier, my bill that I presented, would have a clause in it that if any merger results in a company getting 30% or more of the market share of a particular sector, that it would immediately trigger a clause that they have to prove that it was in the best interest of the consumer. This is a very hard threshold to pass. Many of them would not have been able to pass it at all, so we could have stopped them there. And the other piece of the legislation is if any merger results in a 60% or higher market share, it's immediately deemed illegal. It just can't happen. We can't allow that to happen. That's what I'm talking about in terms of laws that protect people. But when it comes to our cell phone bills and our internet fees, these are directly regulated by the federal government. So the reason that we're getting ripped off by these corporate companies, these large corporate giants, is because governments have let them do it. It's fully regulated by the federal government. The federal government has complete power to ensure that these are more affordable rates, putting in place rules to stipulate that people shouldn't be charged too much. And they tinker with it here and there, but they've let them get away with charging us such high rates that they're amongst the highest in the world. We need to fight back. And that's, again, what I believe government should do. To stop. Imagine your cell phone bills were half of what they were. Imagine the relief, the immediate relief that would give people. These are some of the most expensive bills that we pay, and some of the most important. Because nowadays, a lot of students here, you need internet to access your courses online. You need internet for your work. Lots of folks work remotely. You need internet to access services. This is a fundamental service. People need it. And the federal government should take it seriously and ensure that people are protected. Use the powers we have to ensure that people are not getting ripped off. So I'm sure you've noticed this, that New Democrats have really, this is what we believe in. We've got to take on the corporate wealth. We've got to show that governments can take them on. And they don't like it very much. CEOs, I'm sure you can imagine, in big corporations don't like being taken on. They don't like being challenged. They're not used to it. I believe it is my job. It's my responsibility to do so. And so we did that. I got a couple of clips showing you us taking on some of these corporate giants. We took on Galen Weston. I think it's going to be the next clip here. And so I'm just going to set this clip up. This is in a committee hearing within the past year or so. I chose a turban color arbitrarily, and on screen it does bear resemblance to the brand of the person I'm about to. Yes, I will point that out. That was not the intention. It was not the plan, but I do see the color similarity. But keep in mind, you're going to hear a tone of voice that I ask this question. Remember, I believe that we're all one, and I remember what it's like to struggle with the cost of groceries. So this is me asking some questions. This is my first opening round of questions. Oh, also, over like by my right shoulder, you see a stack of paper. That was like the over thousands of questions that were submitted by people, which I printed off and I thunked there beside me. So that's in the corner you can see. So play the clip, please.
Right now, we're not just going through unprecedented period of cost of living crisis. We have families going into your stores, looking at the price of items, looking at them and putting them back because they can't afford them. We have families that are struggling to buy food for their kids in this country, in a G7 country. And they look at you and they see you making record profits. How can you justify that when families are struggling to put food on the table for their kids?
Thank you. We feel and understand that 95% of Canadians are concerned about food prices. But grocery chain profits are not the reason for food inflation. And as I mentioned...
Profit is too much profit.
Well, so a company needs some degree of profit.
Record profits more than you've ever made. How much profit is too much profit? You're making more money than you've ever made. How much profit is too much profit?
We're a big company and the numbers are very large.
Yep, they're pretty large numbers. So he couldn't answer the question. I was like, how much profit is too much? Like record profits? Do you want to make more than record? Like what do you want to make in terms of profits? So my point of that is to take on the fact that they are not going to bring down prices on their own. They're going to make as much profit as possible. And they're not challenged by anyone. These CEOs don't have to answer in question period. Not that other politicians actually answer in question period. That's an Ottawa joke. I feel like only Ottawa it would land. But he's not questioned in the media. He's not questioned in a parliamentary setting. Regular folks don't get a chance to say, hey, why are you ripping us off? So I really feel it's my responsibility to be your voice. You're feeling the squeeze, and it's my job to take that to the CEO that's ripping you off. And to illustrate that they're not going to do anything on their own. On their own, they're just going to make as much profit as possible. And that's why it is fundamentally the responsibility of government to say, no, you can't rip off people. You can't price gouge. You can't price fix. You can't do these things. Because otherwise they would do it. If there wasn't laws in place, they would absolutely collude and jack up prices. They did it despite laws being in place. And so this is why we believe it is our job to take on corporate greed. Because it is being the voice of the people that are being exploited. We are your voice to fight back. And so we also took on the Bell CEO in the next clip. This is also in a committee hearing.
Right now, we're not just going through unprecedented period of cost of living crisis.
Well, actually, you know
we have
what?
families
Luckily,
going into your stores.
I have found the clicker. I have found the clicker here. That's a good moment. Now I want to play this clip though. That I don't know how to do. So I'm
Do
just
you
gonna.
say that your justification for laying off workers is because you had the consumers in mind? I must have misheard that, because that does not make any sense at all to me, sir.
Oh, it makes very good sense, because what we're
You're
trying
saying
to do is
you
continue
fired
to grow.
6,000 workers
If I may-
because
if I
you're
may.
worried about consumers.
If I may, correct,
Sir,
because we want to continue.
I have a hard time understanding that.
Well,
I thought I must have misheard you, sir, but go on then.
No, I'll explain. What we need to do is to continue to invest in our networks, in our content, in our services to better serve consumers and viewers. And in order to continue to invest...
Sir, sorry, you're saying
we need to
invest, not
continue to
divest,
grow.
because
Hold on, we need to continue
you're
to grow
firing workers
our
and you're saying that's an
revenues.
investment?
We need to adjust to the macroeconomic environment around us. In Canada, we have one of the most poorly performing economies in the industrialized world. We have a massive productivity problem, which the Bank of Canada has identified as a crisis. We have to adjust to that macroeconomic environment around us so that we can continue to grow our revenues, yes, so that shareholders and lenders will continue to give us capital so that we can continue to invest to better serve consumers. That's how the
Okay.
That's how it all ties together.
Yeah, I don't know if that answer just satisfied you, but I was the wildest series of answers that he gave. I tried to call him out for firing 6,000 workers despite being a profitable company, making solid profits, and he said that he had to fire employees because he was investing in content for consumers. None of that made any sense, sir. I think you got a sense of what was going on. And then we asked him another clip. I don't think we have this clip to show you, but I'm sure you can see it on my Instagram. Not that you have to follow me on Instagram, but
your
please feel free to see it.
justification
Oh.
for laying off workers is because
No, it's just going on. That's okay. You can pause that. So I asked him another question, and you got to watch this clip because me describing it's not going to do it justice. I asked him a question based on an organization called Canadians for Tax Fairness. They had found that over a 4-year period of time, that Bell had used loopholes to avoid paying $1 billion in taxes over 4 years. $1 billion. So I said, oh, how much are you planning on avoiding paying in taxes this year? And I said it, very straight. So he's like, oh, I don't know about this report. I'm like, the report is publicly available. I'm sure you can Google it. We can get it to you. But my question is, how much do you plan on avoiding paying this year? His answer was, oh, I'll get that answer to you right away. He didn't say, no, we don't avoid paying our taxes. No, how dare you ask such a question? He literally was like, oh, I'll let you know how much we're avoiding paying in taxes. This is what we're up against. And so I point this again to you that these are CEOs that are going to be content to rip us off, make arguments that firing workers is somehow good for consumers. They are openly admitting to avoiding paying taxes, and governments have allowed them to do so. And so I put to you that the only way that we are going to bring down prices is if we have a government, if we have elected officials, if you have a party, I'm leading you in a certain direction, that is willing to take on corporate greed, that's really willing to stand up for working people. That's the only way we're going to bring down prices. Yeah. Thank you. So I got 2 parts left. I got one part I want to touch on, a very popular question in Ottawa. And folks ask me this a lot, and I'm actually I'm sure this might have been a question if I didn't mention it in my speech, so I want to take this on head on. Lots of folks want to know why we're in this agreement with the government. And I think it's a very important question, and I actually invite the question whenever I get it, because it gives me an opportunity to tell you why we're in this agreement. For us, the question comes down to what do we use our power for? And what do the other parties believe in using their power? I've seen this government up close. I would say outside of someone in government, so a cabinet minister, the prime minister himself, I have had the closest view of the current government. And I can tell you there is so much they can do with the power they have to address the challenges that people are going through. But here's the challenge that we have. We have different views on what the role is of the power that the politicians have, the power of government. The Conservatives believe that governments should do less. They should be smaller. They should be less in the way of large corporations. That means they shouldn't get in the way of them polluting or dumping toxins into the water, to the air, to the land. We should be less involved in big corporations ripping off Canadians. There should be smaller government, less in the way. I think that only benefits the powerful. I've never seen how that ever benefits everyday people, but that's their vision. The Liberals seem to believe there's nothing that government can do. They just kind of sit through and kind of cruise by unless there's a massive crisis, and then they announce a study. Or when there's a massive crisis, then they make an announcement and don't really do anything. So they don't really seem to believe that the government has the power to do things. We have a very different view. I believe the government has the power and the responsibility to make people's lives better, to invest in solutions, to take on the powerful. I don't expect someone going shopping at the grocery store to be able to take on the billionaire themselves. I expect that they collectively come together, we organize, and we have elected officials that stand up and say, no, we're not going to let powerful corporations rip us off or pollute our water and pollute our land. That's the role of government, I believe, to have the power to stand up to those that would take advantage of us otherwise. I believe that we need government to stand up to ensure that workers are safe in their workplaces. We know that without having legislation, often for a big company, they would say, well, is it less costly to pay the fines or to pay the people off rather than invest in preventing the injury in the first place, unless there was laws to the contrary? We know that that's been the case. And so we fundamentally believe the power that we have is to make people's lives better, to use that power for that goal. And so I think about two people when I think about why we're in this agreement. So you don't have to look at my angry face right there. Oh, this is a great picture. I actually didn't see the picture yet. This is Brianna. And I showed the slide for two reasons. One, because it's a beautiful memory for me, and it's important for you to see Brianna and her kids. Also because we often see a certain politician make up people that he meets, and when called out on it, it turns out that he did not ever meet the person. So this is Brianna. I met Brianna. I hope you know who I'm alluding to when I make these jokes. This is Brianna. I met Brianna and her 5 kids in Edmonton. And we were at a park, and you can see her kids are all very happy and smiley and in good spirits. Brianna's a mom of 5, and we met, like I said, recently. And in this time of cost of living crisis, she told me it's everything she can do to keep a roof over her kid's head and to put food on the table. That she's had to make a bunch of sacrifices. And one of the sacrifices was none of her kids were able to go to the dentist. She just wasn't able to afford to do that. Just not something that she could do. She had to make sacrifices, and that was one of them. When we introduced the interim program to cover kids under 12, each of her kids was able to see the dentist for the first time in their life. And she told me that they were happier, they were healthier, they were doing better in school, that there were things that they hadn't caught, things that they weren't able to address. Going to the dentist made them better off. And her eldest, who's in the picture there, turned out had a rare condition that would have never been identified but for that visit to the dentist. And now that he caught that rare condition early, he is going to have an awesome outcome. It's going to be treated and it's going to be fine. And so she has benefited directly, and her kids have benefited. And when I talk about why I'm in this agreement, it's because of Brianna and the millions of people like her and her kids. They're going to be able to go to the dentist. It's going to save them money and improve their quality of life. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm doing it for Linda. Yes. Oh, yes. And there's Benita with me in that picture. Benita's here actually as well. I feel like I can shout out Benita because she's literally in that picture. So I'm describing who is in that picture. So Benita is in the picture on my right, actually physically on my right as well. And Linda is on the left. So Linda is a retired woman, and she has type 1 diabetes. Folks that have type 1 diabetes, this is something you're born with. She's actually quite healthy. She still does yoga, goes for walks, very fitness-oriented. But she got this illness. This happens kind of by genetics. People don't really know exactly why people get it, but you're kind of born with it. So she got type 1 diabetes in her 20s. And I asked her to tell me how much she spends out of pocket for her medication. And just for context, someone living with type 1 diabetes has to take medication to live. If she doesn't take her diabetes medication, her insulin, or test her blood levels, she would literally die. So she takes this medication to live. And so she's like, I haven't kept detailed records since I've had this illness for over 40 years of my life, since I was 20. But I can tell you this year, I tried to tally up how much is covered and how much is not. And she number crunched it. She actually showed me her homework. It was done in a very neat handwriting. I was quite impressed. And she said that with the different coverages, she's like, I'm very lucky that I do have coverage. But with the combination of coverage, I still end up spending about $3,000 a year out of pocket. And I can tell you that this would be on the low end. Like I've actually got a lot of stuff covered this year. And so if I go back over my life, at a minimum, I've spent $3,000 out of pocket a year, probably a lot more in some years. And so on a quick math of that, $3,000 a year for 40 years, she has spent over $100,000 out of pocket just to live. Like, this isn't luxury for her. This is about living. I think it is incredibly unjust that someone would have to spend $100,000 in their lifetime just to be able to live. I think that's fundamentally wrong. If you need any other reason to know why I believe in pharmacare, that's the reason. You shouldn't have to spend that much money just to be able to live. But she gave a lot of great arguments. She said, in addition, pharmacare, I said, what would it mean to you to be able to have your medication covered? She said, well, I do have coverage. I have to call up my insurance agency, fight with them to get coverage. If anyone's had to deal with this, you know what that's like. You've got to fight for every piece of coverage. Then she has to piece together with provincial coverage that exists and then mishmash that together to get her medication and devices covered. And still, like I said, she's got to pay out of pocket. And I asked her, what would it be like for you to not have to worry about that, to have your medication covered entirely? She's like, it would mean just that weight lifted off of me. I wouldn't have the anxiety and worry of having to try to figure out how do we get covered every year. This is someone that's retired, has worked her whole life. She shouldn't have to worry about that. But beyond that, she says, well, I'm able to still afford it. What about the people that can't afford it, that don't take it? I can tell you, when I wasn't able to get the full care that I have now, so she's got a pump, a glucose pump, and the proper medication. She said before that, which was 10 years ago, before I had these things, that I would collapse every couple months, just collapse because her blood sugars dropped too low, the way of monitoring it wasn't very accurate, and her husband would have to frantically call the ambulance, rush her to an emergency room. She would get an emergency intervention to keep her alive, and then she'd be back on her feet. So that would happen literally on a regular basis, every 2 months, every 3 months. So imagine the cost of that, not just to her and her health, but the cost to society. She made the argument that this is not only good for people to be able to save the money, but imagine the cost of having to go to an emergency room, take an ambulance every couple months. If we could cover that so that no one had to worry about that cost, they could take the medication, the preventative medication they needed, it would not only be good for that individual and save their life and their health, but it would also be good for our healthcare system. It would be a massive savings. That's exactly why we believe in it. So we are in this agreement for Linda, to make sure that Linda and millions of people like her will be able to get free diabetes, medication, and devices across our country. That's why we're in this. We're also in it because we fought to bring in free birth control. And free birth control is a fundamental example of New Democrats not just believing in the right to choose, but believing in the right to access to that important fundamental choice. For a lot of people, for a lot of women, the cost of birth control is a significant barrier to exercising that right. And to be able to ensure that people have access to free birth control, for women this is going to mean significant cost savings, but meaningful access to the right. That we obviously and fundamentally support the right, but we also want to improve access to that right. And that's why we're in it, because we're going to be able to now deliver free birth control across this country. I'm going to wrap up here and tell you about what I said was the theme of the speech, and I didn't even talk about Chardi Kala yet. So let me tell you about Chardi Kala. Well, I think the whole thing has been Chardi Kala, but let me tell you what Chardi Kala is. Chardi Kala is a phrase. It's often used in the Sikh tradition, and it's something my mom would always say. So back to my mom. Appropriate slide here would be going to the first slide, but we're not going to go back and forth. My mom, anytime I asked her, how you doing? How's it going, Mom? She'd always say she's in Chardi Kala. And so I'll break down what that means. Chardi Kala, and she taught it to me, it means rising spirits. And and she kind of explained a bit more, and I don't think I paid enough attention to the second part, but I remember that rising spirits bit. So once she was asking me how I was doing, and then I said, let me try to use this phrase that my mom said. So I said, Mom, I'm in Chardi Kala. Little did I know that I would be quizzed on whether I understood the concept. My mom was a teacher in a past life, and so she said, well, why are you in Chardi Kala? So I got a little nervous because I didn't really I don't remember exactly the meaning behind it. I just remembered it being something about being in good spirits. So I said, well, I'm feeling good today. You know, I'm feeling good mood, good weather, things are nice. And then she shook her head, very disappointed. I had not gleaned the message, the meaning behind the phrase. And she went on to teach me what it really meant. She said, that's not what Chardi Kala is. Chardi Kala, yes, is rising spirits, but it's specifically rising spirits in the face of hopeless odds. It's a defiant optimism. Even when you feel like you're down and out and things are against you and times are tough, you still dig deep and find that courageous optimism. And I was like, wow, that's way deeper than I had remembered. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then that has become something that is also a big part of my life. And I think as New Democrats, we definitely have to tap into that a lot. Fellow New Democrat there, give a little chuckle. Because the odds are tough. It's tough out there. And it's hard to fight corporate powers. It's hard to take on corporate greed. It's hard to do this work, to take on these big challenges. It requires a lot of defiant optimism, to laugh in the face of the adversity and to continue to push forward. But I put to you, this is something that I've been challenged with most of my life. I've been told again and again, it can't be done, it's not possible. I remember when I was running for federal election, my first time running back in 2011, and I was running for a very smiley fellow with a lovely mustache who took me to the side at one of the rallies and gave me some words of encouragement. I think it's appropriate to show you the slide now, actually. There's the fellow. You might remember him. Jack Layton. So Jack took me aside. This is a younger version of myself, as you can see. I have no grays in my beard, which my wife will point out. There's Jack and I. This is the rally that we were at. And at the rally, he took me aside and said, you know, people are going to tell you you can't do this, you can't win here, it can't be done. And he hit me with his line. He said, don't let them tell you it can't be done. I'm like, you just hit me with that famous line. I can't believe you actually did that to me. But it worked because I really believed in that anyways. I had that Chardi Kala, but hearing it from Jack definitely made a difference. And we went on to win in a riding that had never been New Democrat in the history of not just that city, but the entire region. We ended up winning there. And folks told me I couldn't win leadership, it couldn't be done, and I was able to become the first racialized leader of a national party. Yes. But I know folks are going to tell us again and again that it can't be done, but I put to you it can be done. We can organize, we can come together, and we can challenge the big problems that are faced with us. We can take on corporate greed, we can do it. If we have a government that has the will, we can bring in laws that protect us. We can bring down the cost of groceries. We can make sure housing is actually affordable so young people don't see a future and say, I don't know where I fit in. Where young people say, you know what, there's a place for me. I can afford to build a life here in Canada. There is a place for me to buy a home that's affordable or to rent a place in a community that I want to live in, that I can build a life here. I believe that people will tell us it can't be done, but we've got to remember this defiant optimism, that don't let you tell them that it can't be done, of Jack Layton, that we can get things done. I want to build a future where people have good jobs that pay the bills, that you can find a home that you can afford, and you've got money left over for the special treats in your life, to go on a vacation if you want, that we can build that type of life, where we can protect our planet, we can have a good economy, and life can be affordable. I believe we can invest in healthcare, we can invest in public infrastructure, we can build a positive life for our future. I believe that we need to build a future where we have more joy and less worry, where we have more hope and less fear, where we have more compassion and less greed. That is a future that I want to build, and I know we can do it together. And that's what I offer to you, with the belief that we are all one, that we are better off when we take care of each other, that if we lift the people around us together, we will all rise, and we can build that brighter future where no one is left behind, with Chardikala, with a defiant optimism and a belief that we're all connected, that we're all one. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I think, oh yes, I think there's a next part to this.
There is an expert to this. Wonderful.
Yes. Do I sit, stand? What do I do? Do I,
You may choose the seat of your preference.
sure.
We will now be turning to some of the questions that have been submitted for Jagmeet Singh from the audience. Again, if you didn't get a chance to grab the QR code, it may at some point reappear.
It is there.
See, that was enough. Excellent. If we don't get to everyone's questions, please note that we will be answering them and sending the responses out by email in the next weeks. So, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Hi. I'm sitting down now. Feels like a different view of the crowd.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, these are cozy, right? Yeah.
Amazing. All right, so our first question is from Michael, who is an alumnus. Will you be supporting the popular boycott of Loblaws and its subsidiaries that begins tomorrow, May 1st?
Oh yeah, I felt this question would be in the crowd. It's a very appropriate question. First of all, I have to say, anytime people come together and organize in this way, that they voice their frustrations, they organize people together, that's powerful. And it's actually very inspiring to see. So I just want to acknowledge the folks that came up with this idea, the folks that are organizing across the country. It is really powerful to see people come together and want to take on corporate greed in that way. It's very inspiring. And it is another reason that points to why we need to take on the corporate greed of Loblaws and all the other corporate grocery stores that are ripping us off. And I use it as, I will be inspired by that work. I'll be inspired by those folks to keep on fighting back against corporate greed, to put in place laws that protect us, that ensure that consumers aren't being ripped off by Loblaws or any other corporate grocery store. So it's going to be an inspiration to me, and I look forward to following what happens in the next days, I guess.
Great. Yeah, it's so nice to see grassroots movements coming up.
Grassroots mobilization. Shout out to all the folks that were organizing that.
Fantastic. Okay, our next question is from Adriana, a student. How do you intend to govern effectively in an era of growing polarization where so many people no longer believe in facts?
This is genuinely a big question that we are confronted with. Like, it's something that we think about a lot. And something we've wrestled with, because I don't want to give up on anyone. Like, I don't like that idea that you give up on someone and that they're not going to be with us ever. Like, you just kind of give up on them. I don't want to give up on anyone. And so I feel like a couple things we can do to address the polarization. I think one of the things is people are angry. People are fed up. People are frustrated. And I get that. I see people looking at a system that's very rigged against them. A young person's like, I'm never going to be able to afford a home. I'm not going to get a job that's going to be enough to pay the bills. Like, it feels very frustrating, almost hopeless. So I think the first thing is you can't ignore it. And I feel like sometimes some people just want to ignore the pain that people are going through. Just gloss over it, jump over it, and say, it's not really there. So you can't ignore it. But then what do we do with that? I feel like this is where the goal should be to bring people together, say, yes, we can actually solve these problems. Instead of inflaming the division, once we acknowledge the anger and acknowledge the frustration, give people some real solutions, genuine solutions. And I feel like this is where we talk to people as real people. Don't give them cheap slogans or gimmicky solutions that aren't going to fix the problem. I think this is where we have to say, be honest with people. These are real problems. They're serious problems, but we have serious solutions for them. And so treating people with respect, treating their concerns with respect, and giving meaningful solutions, I think is a part of what we do. So when we identify the major problems that people are dealing with, high cost of groceries, high cost of rent, well, we can go after that. If we tackle the corporate greed that's driving it up, let's take on the large corporate grocery stores, bring in laws that protect consumers. Let's build a housing market that works for people, not for rich investors. And I feel like we can tackle some of the conditions that allow for polarization to grow. When people feel disenfranchised, feel frustrated, feel that there's no solutions and no hope, then it's inevitable that people will be preyed on this way and get polarized. But we give people hope and give solutions, show that we can be a force for good in people's lives with concrete solutions. I feel like we can tackle that and give people hope and bring people together.
Chardikala?
Chardikala. With Chardikala, that's what we do. We deal with the polarizations with Chardikala.
And another question from a student, which love to see it. This is from Carla. In 2016, France made it illegal for supermarkets to throw away unsold food. That led to grocery stores selling at more competitive prices and unsold food being donated by law to food banks and shelters. Given the high and rising food insecurity levels in Canada, which you've already spoken about, would you champion similar legislation here?
On first blush, it sounds like a really good idea. It's not something that I've analyzed to look at the implications in Canada. If there's conditions in France that are different from Canada where that law would work better, but on quick glance, I'm not supposed to make policy up on the fly. But I gotta say, I hear my chief of staff laughing very loud at that. But I feel like there's some merit to this. I feel like it's something we could absolutely look at. Like the general idea is putting in place laws that make food prices more affordable. And this seems to be a tool that might achieve that. So it's something we would definitely look at. And I'm committed, though, to taking on corporate greed. And so if it's something that does that, and I can show that it'll work in Canada, we're in.
All right, you heard it here first. All right, another question from an alumnus. Michael, will you be, this is a question that we had earlier. It's the boycott of laws. Excellent. A question from a community member in
Yes.
the audience, Richard. What is the NDP's commitment to the Canada Disability Pension? How will you and the NDP yield your influence to assist people out of poverty for good?
So I think there's a couple pieces to this. There's a disability benefit that's just been announced, and that amount is very low. We've raised deep concerns about how the amount is too low, that not enough people are going to qualify for it, and there's still no clarity around the clawbacks. And so we are deeply concerned about that. We actually ran on a guaranteed livable income for people living with disabilities and for seniors. We believe in that fundamentally, that seniors, people living with disabilities in our country, should be able to live a life of dignity and should have enough to be able to live that life of dignity with financial supports. So we believe in that. We want to do that. What's become clear to me is that the Liberals are not the ones that are going to do it. We fought them, we pushed them, we're going to keep on fighting, we're not going to give up, but they have shown us in their announcement that this is not something that they are giving enough urgency. So while we're going to continue to fight and push for as much possible, I believe the only way we can truly achieve a livable, guaranteed income for seniors and people living with disabilities is with a new Democrat government, because we are committed to it, we believe in it, and we'll make it happen.
All right, a question from Jennifer, an instructor. The NDP has a long tradition of reaching across the aisle, left and right, in keeping with your point of finding common cause. What are the limits when it comes to finding common cause with political rivals? Are there people or positions you just cannot reach out to?
I want to be like yes right away, but I'm trying to be like we're all one. Well, there's fundamental, I've been being coy a little bit purposely, but I'll just say it bluntly. Pierre Poilievre has made it clear that he is opposed to unions. He wants to take away dental care from seniors. He wants to end pharmacare before it even begins. He doesn't believe in birth control for women. In fact, last year, he allowed in legislation that was an attack on a woman's right to choose from one of his conservative members. He has made it clear that he was proud of trying to bring in right-to-work legislation in Canada, which is basically anti-union, anti-worker legislation. I can't see someone who doesn't believe in the climate crisis, doesn't believe in stopping big polluters from paying their fair share, who doesn't believe in all these fundamental things like public health care, being public, and defending it. I don't see how there's any way we could work together, to be very blunt. I would say, though, that as a general principle, if someone is interested in working to do something that's going to help out working people, that's going to choose workers over big bosses and CEOs, that I would be open to a solution that centers workers and centers people, that centers young people, the planet. Like, these are the principles. If we center those things in a decision, I would look at those offers or those policy discussions or that maybe legislation. But I would generally rule out someone who is opposed to everything that I believe is good for working people and everything I believe in. And then I'd be open to working with anyone else that is interested in doing things that are for the betterment of everyday people.
Great. Another question from a student. This one comes from Mohammed. What do you think the future is for international students coming to Canada seeking education and looking to enter the workforce after their studies? How do we create an environment that encourages them to stay and work in Canada and not drive them away?
A really pertinent question, because there's a lot of insecurity and uncertainty for international students right now. So I would say one is we, of course, need immigration in our country. We also need to make sure that our immigration levels are set at a level where we can ensure that people are being able to be supported and welcome to the country. We have enough infrastructure and resources to ensure that people are supported and that our immigration levels meet our needs. So that's a general principle. Someone who studies in Canada, has spent time here, learned here, gotten trained here, should be someone that is a very good candidate to then become a Canadian citizen. So I would say that we should have an immigration system that acknowledges that people that come to learn and get educated and trained in Canada would be great prospective folks to then become Canadians. And so that would be my general kind of vision around that. If someone comes here to study and get trained here, we should find a way to ensure that they can then use that training and that education to contribute to Canada. I think that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, another question from a community member. This one comes from Douglas. Most of the positive programs enacted by this Liberal government only happened because the NDP was holding their feet to the fire. In the next election, would you consider offering the Liberals another power-sharing minority government?
I want to say no right away. Because we're going to win the next election. We're going to be the ones. Come on now. Chardi Kala. Defiant optimism. I defy the odds. We're going to win because people need us to win. I genuinely mean it. And I want to put it to you this way. We're 25 MPs. 25 MPs brought in pharmacare, diabetes coverage, diabetes devices coverage, birth control, brought in childcare legislation, brought in dental care, brought in 10 paid sick leaves, anti-scab legislation. That sounds like a majority government's 4-year mandate. 25 New Democrats did that with 2 years. Give New Democrats a 4-year mandate as a majority government. Imagine the type of country we could build, where every single decision is for you, for workers, for people. And so I get the thrust of it is we have historically used our power in minority governments and made life better for people. And a lot of things that we're proud of, our healthcare system, Tommy Douglas, even our EI and CPP were brought in by New Democrats, Stephen Lewis, Jack Layton, all used our power in minority governments to make a difference in people's lives, and I believe in that. But I believe ultimately, and Ed taught me this, and I was getting a little emotional when I was up on stage because it was actually on this very same stage that I talked about my dear friend and mentor, Ed, and so I was thinking about that. This is where the funeral was held, so I kind of got caught up in emotion for a moment thinking about that. But Ed told me this, that he believed in the work we were doing in this minority government with the agreement that we had, but he always reminded me that ultimately we need to be in power so that every decision we made in government was for people. And that for too long, people were seeing that there's really just the blue team, the red team, that it's just liberals and conservatives. They need to know that they have real hope and that to not give up on that vision, that we need to be in a position of power to make a difference in people's lives. And so thinking about Ed in this place, I think that is what I want to achieve. And so while I appreciate the thrust of the question was about, we're willing to work together, I really want people to know I want to be the next Prime Minister of this country. I want to be the first Labour Prime Minister, the first New Democratic Prime Minister of this country.
All right, and one last question from me.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, we have a lot of students in the audience today, current students and future and graduates potentially. So what message would you send to them about starting their lives now in Canada?
Wow, yeah. I would say we need you. We need your energy, your hope for the future. We need you, and I know you need us to make sure that this country is better for you. And so it's kind of one of those mutual relationships where we need you, and we need you to keep on hoping, don't give up, keep on fighting. Please find that defiant optimism, and I promise you I'm going to fight for you. And I'm going to fight to make sure we build a country where you can live a beautiful future, you can have the things that you need in your life, you can stay here and build that bright future. You don't have to go anywhere else. Canada can be your home. where you can build that bright future. And I promise you I'm going to fight for that.
Don't have a mic, so it's my pleasure now, first to thank you, Jagmeet, very much
That's great.
for joining us tonight, for giving us so much to think about in terms of the future of our country. Chardikala, I mean, I'm going to remember that one, right? That is definitely a wonderful thought to leave everyone in this room with, about the importance of thinking about optimism in the face of adversity.
Mhm.
We have a couple of small tokens of appreciation for me. Before we do that, though, I want to bring up a couple of people onto the stage so that we can take a backwards selfie with the audience here. So it's a group shot. Can I please have Mary Francoli and Evelyn, you stay here, and then Jaden and Eddie, for your involvement in your work in this, two of our students, that are working with us. So you guys come up while I share these gifts with Jagmeet. So it was a pleasure. Jagmeet mentioned we had dinner this evening, and his lovely wife and beautiful daughters were there as well. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time for all. So we also included a couple of items for your little girls. So.
That's very cute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's cute. I don't know. Should I? I feel like you're leaning towards me opening up now. Okay, so we got a cutie pie koala bear, I feel like, with a Carleton University bandana. Very lovely. We have also what looks like a fox. A husky, of course. So clearly a husky. A husky, also with the Carleton University. Beautiful. Oh, wow. I don't know if someone told you this about me, but this is very appropriate. A journal. I don't know if this is too much to the chagrin of my team, but I have multiple journals where I talk about my legislative experience, my West Block experience. So I have lots of journals, so this is very fitting. I don't know what I'll use this one for, but this looks great. And what else we have here? Also very appropriate, a tumbler, I believe, of some sort. A water bottle. They're not called tumblers. Maybe it's an inappropriate term. Water bottle. Very lovely. Thank you very much. That's very sweet. Thank you.
Okay. Took me a minute to get up here.
We'll hold one of these up here with you. Okay, you're all smiling. You're going to be in the shot. You ready?
Like this?
Should we?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Audience, you can do a little wave if you like.
I'm tall. I can be behind you. Everyone wave.
You can come right back here, actually. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Thank you. Now we're gonna. Now we're gonna get another one with a photographer there.
Yeah.
We're just gonna. You're able to get the crowd behind us.
All right.
Okay, we're holding these little stuffies here. All right. Okay, wait. We'll do one more. You can do this a video. Ready? On three. As a crowd, we're going to say, I'm going to practice. Practice with me, so we'll get it right. Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala. Oh, beautiful. That's great. Okay, on three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Chardi Kala. Wow, that was good. That was very special. That was beautiful. You want to do an IG video quickly? Okay. I'm just going to do, if I could ask you all to do that again. Oh, you've all left. Well, it's okay. I'll do it with the audience. We're going to do that same thing again with the audience. I'm going to do a little video, and I'm going to ask you to do the thing again. But I'm not going to let the people know in the video, so you know what you're going to do. Okay. folks, I just gave a talk here. I was very honored to speak to folks here at the Carlton Bell Lecture. These are some of the folks. And we're gonna do something on 3 to let you know what the theme of the speech was. Ready, folks? 1, 2, 3. Chardi Kala. Wow. That was beautiful. That's gonna be on social media soon. Good, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's actually okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Do I give some of these mic? Do I give some of this mic? Okay. Hey, how you doing, brother? Thank you, man. That was all right? Yeah? Good to see you, too. Hey.
Awesome.
Peggy? Oh, beti bahut badhiya, bahut badhiya. बहुत ठीक ठाक थैंक यू जी जी 4 महीने ते दूजी 2 साल अनहद कौर ते दानी कौर
Because I think they didn't want to make an announcement because not everybody's coming,
Thank you.
right?
Hey, nice to meet you. Hi. Nice to meet you too. Thank you. Hey.
Send the video to your mother.
Oh yeah, I will. That's so cute. She'll love that. That's a great idea. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mike Water? Thank you, please. Thank you. Hi. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
that's not
Oh, isn't it
better.
cool? Good luck. That's awesome. I see the necklace. It's very fitting. Yeah, the law necklace. Yeah.
I need to give my mic to
That's
someone.
so cool. Actually, that's one of the ways I first got started in activism was doing Know Your Rights seminars in, that's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. So cool. Hey, nice to meet you. Hey, pleasure to meet you. Yeah. Thank you. Hey.
Hey, I really love it. I work for the ADC right beside Rescue Path.
Oh, yeah.
I love when you have that same candor.
Thank you, man.
Is it okay if I
Yes.
do it?
Do you want to be in it? Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Hi. How you doing? Oh, thank you. Yeah. I hear you. We got you, okay? We got you. Yeah. Thank you. What's your name? Thanks, Marsha. Hey. Nice to meet you, John. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And she was telling me this is a story she told me a couple years ago.
Yeah. Right.